Okay. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this very special evening today. Today we are hosting an amazing human being, Ashraf. Ashraf's story is remarkable. She graduated in business from one of the most prestigious business schools in the country, one of my favorites, XLRI. And, she was having this wonderful job in SRF, which is where I met her for the first time, as she reminded me. And then something happened to her which made her pay attention to something that was happening in our context, which very few people care. Things happen around us. For example, the Ukraine war is happening around us, right? For some of us, it's something very distant, but for some of us, we are waking up in the night and thinking about the hospital which is being bombed, and something is troubling our soul, right? And I think something happened to Ashraf because of what she's observed and felt in the context, which gave a completely new direction to her life. When people begin to take responsibility for who they are in this special way, then special work begins to happen, because then they begin to go on the path they are meant to go on. It's what our Japanese friends often talk about, ikigai. So she found her ikigai and she began that journey. So Ashraf, it's such a wonderful occasion for us to host you. In this forum, we host business leaders and CEOs and people like that. And of course, when you are a business school is hosting such a conversation. And then my favorite moments in this series are when I host somebody like you, who's not the usual CEO, but who is a very different leader, but perhaps who has created much, much more impact than any business leader could. So thank you, Ashraf, for coming today. And may I request my students to first share their experience on today's theme on personal transformation in this journey on self-leadership. So Sakshi, why don't you go first? You will first introduce yourself and share your insights. So go ahead.
Sure, sir. Good evening, ma'am. And first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. My name is Sakshi, and I have been born and brought up in Singrauli, which is also known as the powerhouse of the country. I come with 3+ years of experience in talent acquisition and HR operations. And currently, I am a part of the Human Resource Leadership Program at SOIL. Coming to this topic of transformation, to transform in any area of life, it requires two things. First, we must decide what we want to change. Second, the outcome that we desire. Emotionally, people want to change their lives and they take steps to do so, but without having a clear mind and understanding of how they can go about making that change. And therefore, it becomes extremely difficult to achieve what they're trying to do. SOIL has made me start my transformation journey. Our curriculum puts a major emphasis on yoga and meditation. And I personally have been trying to achieve that in my routine since a very long time. But I have been failing because, that motivation somehow goes away after some time. With the leadership sessions and the articles that have been shared as a part of our course, especially one by the Stephen James, it has really helped me, especially to make that head start in my transformation journey. Of course, being consistent is the tougher challenge, and that is where the leadership course really helped me. We learned the importance of keeping the why in the head, and which kept me motivated throughout. And it's rightly said that there is a magic about doing small things every day consistently that works, and with no consistency there would not be any transformation. Also, one thing that Anil sir mentioned in the class, that tracking and sharing the progress of your transformation is very crucial. and it keeps me motivated and consistent in my journey. And lastly, I would like to mention that it's not what you intend to do that gets you to your goal. It's what you actually do that matters, and that's where the transformation happens, which makes you a better version of yourself. So, thank you. That is from my end.
Thank you, Sakshi. Yes, Samrat, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. And hello, ma'am. We are glad to have you today here. Thanks a lot for coming. And starting with my introduction, I comes with an experience of 3 years in strategy consulting before coming to Soil. And here, beside my studies, I am also serving as the student council president. So the learnings were somewhat like this, that we often say that it's not too late to learn, but my personal experiences proves that it is better to late than never. So we all have experienced a lot of challenges throughout all these years, from being strong in tough times to challenge to changing and expanding roles as we go forward. We all have faced many obstacles over these years, from staying strong in the face of adversity. One of the most common phobias is the dread of vulnerability, guilt, and regret. And that's the reason that we afraid to open up to our friends, families, and to the common people around. However, as we grow older, we realize that the world may be a frightening place, and because where we find it difficult to share our feelings, share our thoughts. We understand that not everyone is on our side, and that not every situation will turn out in our favor. But over the time, we learn to defend ourselves, and how we did it was through the self transformation course. So I completely agree that personal transformation is challenging at times, because we are not even aware of our shortcomings. But coming to Soil and then taking up a leadership position and then a self leadership course adding to it give me an opportunity where I got to introspect and understand myself more deeply. So during my early graduation days, I fiercely identified myself as a person afraid of public speaking or addressing to a large set of audience. I never managed to handle events in my life ever before directly. I never pictured myself also like standing at a podium or addressing my batchmates or colleagues, exposing my thoughts and feelings, right, in the form of speeches or any form of discussions. Then I went to job, and also it was not very easy to communicate for me as well there also. But I was always very intrigued towards consulting, and as we all know that consulting majorly deals with giving effective advices and one's viewpoints. Then in Soil, with each day serving as a student leader, public speaking got easier. I listened openly to subsequent batch of compliments and at times critiques also. So the more I reflected on my shared experiences, the more I realized and the element to self discovery and confidence. So I even mind even the most minor details for emotional resonance. So this was my story of self transformation, from a introvert to an extrovert now, reaching out to people, discussing their problems, understanding their expectations, and then trying my level best to deliver on that.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Samrat. Sambhav, over to you. Sambhav, are you there? Okay,
Because,
maybe Sambhav is having some technology issues, so why don't we go to Sahana?
Yes. So good evening, ma'am. My name is Sahana Mukit. I was born and brought up in the city of Shillong. And then I came to Delhi NCR, where I pursued my BTech. I still remember that once I went to a bank with my father, and the manager told that your daughter will never come back to the city. And if I think over that sentence, I actually feel it. Yes, that was true, because jobs are here. I have been studying here and continuing my life here. So maybe like in a year, I do visit my parents, but then it's like not continuously with them staying there. So post that, like after my BTech, I joined an IT firm where I was working there for about 3 years. And it was during that like work from home days when I realized that is it the work that I need to do, or is there something else that I can do? And it was during that time, when I gave this thought of giving a chance to transform my career to some other direction, and I decided to join soil. I would say that soil is truly transformational for me, because I do not talk much, but then here I got to explore so much I can't imagine. I got to learn what I never ever explored, and I did some things unimaginable with my groups, with my peers, and a lot I personally transformed myself. So from the self leadership classes, I got to introspect about myself. And one best thing about Anil sir's class is that because we were attending the classes virtually, so every week when we used to have our classes, we were given different breakout rooms where, as a new batchmates, we got to interact with so many people coming from different backgrounds. And the self leadership course actually, like Anil sir, what he used to ask us is to pen down our thoughts, like what we learn after every session. And when I used to write, I used to feel like a lot of emotions, a lot of things that used to come in the form of words. So those are some of the learnings which I would say that it helped me remove a lot of self-doubt from myself, and it made me solve many problems with a design thinking approach. So that's my learning from the self-leadership class. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahana. So, Sambhav, now that you are back, maybe you will share next your thoughts. Yes.
Yes, sir. Good evening, ma'am. So I, Sambhav Jain, I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion today. And I'm excited to share my experiences from the self-leadership course, particularly in terms of personal transformation. So like prior to joining Soil, I worked as an assistant manager for a business development for a new Delhi-based advertising agency. So when I started at Soil, we were given this program of self-leadership in which we learned a lot about self-leadership, meditation, deep listening, and biases and other topics and other various topics. So it helped me, to mold my personality into one that is more ethical, confident, and empathetic. All of which I would like to, support with an SIP experience or the NGO experience, which I can say that we received during this course. Like before joining the Soil, I had never experienced or never visited any NGO before. So, but after working with one where I was actually teaching and training not just the students, but also the working professionals on soft skills, I decided to do so. So it actually gave me some sort of confidence that even I, as a person, can be one who can help others. So I felt very confident at the moment since I was able to communicate and what I had learned and experienced during my program. There is an analysis in which my SIP partner said that I have contributed to the candidate to get the candidates placed and be job ready for them. So finally, everyone in the NGO and college also praised my efforts and learning, and this was only possible because I followed a structured personal transformation journey in which I focus on changing my mindset to, always learning and growing, making a decision and committing to my learning and taking action, finally like achieving the results. So this is my journey.
Thank you, Sambhav. Next, Roshan, you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Samrat. So myself, Roshan Singh. Basically, I am from Bihar, Gaya. I have completed my BTech in Computer Science Engineering. So before joining Soil, I was more of involved into a technical role where I was doing software testing, then live testing, and I was I was more into a technical role. So during these pandemic days and in my last organization where I got to lead from the front, where I got to work with different managers from development teams, business managers, clients, and all. So that was the time that it struck in my mind that this is the thing that I want to go into the managerial line instead of sitting and just testing the codes. So that was the time that I started for looking for a 1-year program, and I came through Soil. And after joining Soil, it has been a awesome journey for me till now. I got to learn so many things. We we had yoga classes and Anil sir's self-leadership sessions and consulting classes, and then our SIP journey where we worked, we visited our NGO and we did social kind of stuff, so doing organizing blood donation camps, organizing different events. So overall, it gave a like huge confidence on, and it also built our communication skills, networking as well. And the main part that, you know, in each classes we were we were divided into some small breakout rooms where, you know, 4 or 5 people, they will be there, and they all were from different domains. So some have done HR, somewhere, you know, doing HR, and somewhere from banking and finance industry, and I was from IT industry. So, you know, there were different opinions, different perspectives that, you know, came around for the, you know, each of the topic that we were given. So it's been an awesome journey till now, and I myself see now as, you know, more confident. And earlier I was very much scared of, you know, coming to a platform and addressing a lot of people. So though I was involved into writings and all, but, you know, it was not this way earlier. I am pretty much more confident, and yeah, it's been a great journey till now. And yeah, thanks to, you know, all the faculties and Anil sir, the lessons that they have taught us. And I would like to, you know, summarize it in 2 lines that I have written. So for, you know, all the support that we have received from our faculty members. So it goes like कि आप सब शिक्षकों को समर्पित हमारी ये कविता और ये लेखन कार्य, आप सब शिक्षकों को समर्पित हमारी ये कविता और ये लेखन कार्य, हाँ मैं इस कलयुग का अर्जुन और आप सब मेरे द्रोणाचार्य, आप सब मेरे द्रोणाचार्य। और अपनी शब्दों से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करूं, अपनी शब्दों से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करूं, मेरे शब्दों में इतना दम नहीं, बस इतना जान लीजिए कि गुरु आपको माना है और मैं एकलव्य से कम नहीं, मैं एकलव्य से कम नहीं। So that's all from me.
Thank you, Roshan. So Ashraf, now we are all very keen to listen to your story. So tell us about your early days, about you, your family, your growing up, and then, you know, your journey. I mean, we are all keen to listen to your journey. You may unmute.
Yes.
You may unmute.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anil. Thank you for this very, very warm welcome and a very special starting. It's lovely to have young people set off the stage along with you. And I want to congratulate all of you, Sakshi, Samrat, Sambhav, Shahana, Roshan. I think I covered all of you. I just want to congratulate all of you on this journey, on the self-leadership course that has sort of put you on another milestone and brought so much. So I'm just really grateful for that sharing. About me, my journey, I think I was just sort of resonating. I mean, thinking about my experiences when I was your age. So I'll come to that as well. My experience in my college, it reminded me a lot of what is happening in soil, reminded me of that. A little bit about me. Okay, so Anil has given me a really wide canvas. It's very hard to talk about a journey, especially when I'm so old. I mean, relatively older to some of you. And I don't know which are the highlights. There's so many things that have happened, which are turning points, but I'll try to keep it simple. So I have framed this conversation on 5 feelings: love, learning, freedom, ownership, and social hope. These are 5 feelings that I believe are required to nourish a young person's soul and also nudge the young person or support the young person on their leadership journey in the world. And in a way, that's what I heard also in the conversation of all of you just now, that this is the kind of space you have got in soil. And my story, I'm going to use these feelings to tell. So my story begins with, I don't know where you want to begin, but I want to share my background. My father is no more. He was a Muslim, and my mom, a Jain. She's still there. And they both had a love marriage some 100 years ago. And being born in that kind of a setting, I have always, one thing that I got from them was, of course, tremendous love, but also learning about love, that love can really cross all boundaries. And that has been my compelling force for a long time. Schooling was very normal, regular schooling. Of course, I would say, privileged schooling. I was in a convent school. And again, it was a place of great love. I mean, it was a place that sort of recognized diversity. It was a beautiful school that also celebrated different religions, different communities. And even though it was a convent school, it definitely celebrated the idea of togetherness and the diversity of this country, which is what I really, really remember as a compelling memory. So I was lucky to be part of such an education. One experience I want to share, which has been a turning point for me, is in 1984, there were the Sikh riots. Many of all of you, many of you were not there at that time, and we are children of that time of 1984. And I think I was in the 10th or the 12th, and I remember there was a whole attack on Sikh houses in Delhi, and after Indira Gandhi's assassination. And it was pretty, very, very violent. I mean, houses were on fire when, we would go out on the terrace, we could see. And we were children then. And it was such violence that we could not understand it. It really had a very deep impact on me. And I remember that my dad going out every night with a hockey stick to stand with the RWA outside the houses of our friends who were Sikh. Because the idea was that if a mob comes, then we must protect our neighbors. And there was a real fear of that happening because it was happening everywhere. That has been a very compelling, image, seeing my dad go out and do this action. And every night we used to wonder, is he going to come back? Because things were so difficult and violent. And to my mind, that act of doing what you can and breaking all your ideas of self and connecting with so-called the rest of the community and being one was very, very powerful. I mean, it was very scary, but it was also very hopeful to me. And so that to me was the real love. That is what I believe is love, that you can love people, you can love everyone, and you can be there for people. That for me is real power. So that is my little story of what I learned from my parents. College, little bit about my college. I studied in Delhi University, did physics. Thought I was going to be an astrophysicist and maybe land up in NASA or something. ऐसे कोई dreams थे. Landed up in college and realized, oh my God, I just cannot. I just can't understand this subject. Like, it had become so technical. It just, some of the things just went way above my head. It was no more just fun about how things work. It was statistical and maths and all of that, which was stat maths, which was very, very scary. And I think I got 4 on 50 in one of the papers. And that's when I just said, oh my God, now I have reached my limit. I cannot do. So was wondering what to do. And then I met one of my sister's friends. I definitely didn't want to do an MA, and met one of my sister's friends, and he just happened to say, listen, what are you really interested in? I said, I don't know. I was always interested in physics. Now I don't know what to do. And then he said, what do you like? I said, I love being, what do you like? I said, I love being with people. And I think I just enjoy, I'm just good at working with people. That's all. So he said, oh, then you must do HR. And why don't you give this exam to Accelerate? He was an Excel alumni. And I just gave the exam. I had no studies, no plan, nothing. I just went and gave the exam randomly because somebody said I should. So really, Accelerate to me was a very random choice. And I'm so glad that I went there. First of all, I got in. And then when I went there, I think a lot of what you all shared, it was a space for me that gave me a sense of diversity. Suddenly I was with Delhi University is typically North, right? You have people mostly from North, and in Excel you had people from all over the country. That to me was a big, big turning point. And all these experiences in college, Delhi University was big learning also, and so was Excel. And I think that was a big place of learning about life, learning about the world, learning about this country, learning about the diversity. And I want to share one little experience was I want to connect this, what happens in soil. We had a wonderful professor who, we had a course called community engagement. And probably that was the first time that I got exposure to working with in Jharkhand. At that time, Jamshedpur, basically heart of Jharkhand, was formed later, but with the communities in Jharkhand, and that exposure to people coming from the tribal background with that in those spaces was really transformational. I mean, I was experiencing life in a way I had never done before, and somehow the seed of wanting to do community engagement remained in my head, that this is something I want to probably, it got seeded. I think that got seeded. And I think what you are talking about from your rural exposures, I think things are getting seeded. You won't even know where it will make an impact on you, but it's beautiful. Anyway, after college, I joined, like Anil had shared, we joined SRF. Arjun is my partner actually, and we were in XLRI together, and we joined SRF. And one of the persons I met in XLRI is Meenu Venkateshwaran. All three of us are co-founders of Pravah, the organization that I'm with, and we found ourselves together in one organization. Now is the time I want to talk to you about what happened. And 1992, the Babri Masjid demolition happened. We were in corporate sector. Actually, I was in SRF for a few years, and then I had shifted to Escorts Financial Services. And it was at that time that the Babri Masjid demolition happened. And following that, there were riots all across the country. And literally the country was on fire at that time. And I won't say in much detail, but it was also the time Arjun and I had just got married. We were on a honeymoon. We were in the Andamans. And we were trying to come back to the mainland when the flights got cancelled. And we were moved. This is really surreal experience. It was in those days when you missed a flight, when the flight got cancelled, you were put into some 5-star hotel. Okay. So we moved from this really 100 rupees a day guest house to this fancy 5-star hotel, which you could never have imagined ever having gone to. It was called the Bay Island Resort. And so we said, oh, wonderful, honeymoon, ye sab, and all, free mein holiday. But really, when we put on the television and we realized, when we were not connected with the news, we didn't actually know what was happening. So when we really put on the television, we were completely shocked as to what violence had erupted. And it really shook us. When stayed with us, we came back to our corporate sector work. I was HR head at that time at Escort Financial Services. We were still very, very young people, must be 24 then. And somewhere that thing about, like, it was very surreal to be in that hotel, 5-star, yevo, life is made. You have a corporate sector job, you can, get anywhere. You don't really have to think, actually. Once you're in that space, I didn't have to think about tomorrow. I knew my career was made, in a sense, and we were doing well. So, but in all of this, seeing what was happening, it was very, very disturbing. And somehow, I'll just move ahead. At that time, we decided that we will do something, and we had no idea of being social workers or social activists. We had no exposure to that, pretty mainstream kind of backgrounds. We said, what are we going to do? We said, we're going to work in schools, and we're going to talk to young people about violence, about hate, about polarization. And we're going to talk about issues in a way that young people understand that this violence is a manifestation of who we are. It's not just out there, it's in each of us. And unless we look at who we are not going to change this world. And this first workshop that we ever did was called From Me to We. And that is the start of my journey in the idea of setting up this organization called Pravah. And again, I want to say that idea was not to set up an NGO. The idea was, I think Sakshi mentioned, like, something about, it's not about what your intention is, it's just what you do. So the idea was just to start doing the work. And the school work that we did, we actually saw in our first workshop, it was called From Me to We, which we did in Ramjas School, Delhi. We actually could see transformation happen. It was a 3-day workshop, but we couldn't even believe that the power of good facilitation, of deep engagement, can create a transformation in the classroom. Many young people came back to us and said, we've never thought about these issues like that. And you really helped us, give us a voice to voice out when we see violence or discrimination. We have found a voice. We know that we are right, but so far we never thought we could say it, because all around us, whether it's our families or the communities where we come from, or even in our schools, we are not able to say that with assertion and affirmation, because we are underconfident to really find our voice against these issues. So this for us was a real big turning point. And slowly we found that the word started spreading. One principal told the other, and suddenly we had our hands full, and we were doing day jobs in our companies. But in the evenings and on weekends, we were doing these workshops. The work became so much that somebody then inspired us. They said, if you want to do this seriously, it cannot be a pastime. Why don't you set up? That's how actually we started Pravah. And in 1994, then I decided I will quit and do this full time. So this is really my starting journey. I don't know how far you want me to go down the road, Anil, but I'll pause for a minute.
It'll be very nice for then you to say this is how it began and how it has now, transformed to a large movement and the kind of impact it is making now. So it'll be very nice to learn from that as well. Yes.
Okay. So staying with the story, I talked about love and I talked about learning, and now I'll talk about freedom. Setting up this small organization, there was just me and a block field worker from Delhi School of Social Work who used to come twice a week. And we both actually set up, of course, we had Meenu and Arjun and some friends, but they were all working. We both actually worked full time for a year with schools, going every day with a basta, with some training pitara, and then we would work with children. And it's amazing what really that Margaret Mead's code, what a few people can do if they just decide to do it. We had no funding, no money, nothing, but just doing it for the love of it and knowing for the power of it, actually, knowing that it makes a difference. And to me, the compelling word here is freedom. And it's this freedom to be able to devise your own way. I mean, there were many other people working on these issues, and there were big organizations working on these issues, doing great work. But to be able to also find your own way of making that difference is very, very exhilarating. And I'm sure many of you will be on the journey to chart that out for yourself. So what we did is we started working with schools, and then we were invited, just to very quickly give you how, we suddenly, of course, got a lot of attention in the early days. I became an Ashoka Fellow in 1996, which was very one of the younger Ashoka Fellows in those times. So we were very lucky. We were spotted very lucky by people, very early by people. Because of that luck on our side, we got also a lot of attention and a lot of early support. And we set up then a youth program in partnership with IGSS, which is still running. It's called Students Mobilization Initiative for Learning Through Exposure. It's called the SMILE program. And it's a program actually that runs across the country, and it's run by different organizations with different names. But it is essentially like your immersion program in soil, where we were one of the few programs in those days which was sending college students to rural areas for long immersions, 4 to 8 weeks. And they would come back and we would do a reflective process on what they've learned and build on that their understanding of self, everything that you do now, leadership, social issues, critical thinking, and taking action, entrepreneurship. So that was our major. This program is now running in different avatars in different countries. And I feel this program, it was all about young people discovering themselves through social change in a space of serious freedom, like where fun was serious business, but also freedom to act in the way they wanted to do. And following this, a new program was initiated, which is now a very popular program called Change Looms, Leadership and Learning Journey. This is really about, this was our story, that we started up Pravah from age of 24, and we felt we wanted to seed many such organizations. So Pravah has seeded about 600 young people's youth-led initiatives or startups over the last 15 years by offering support and financial support, small financial support, but lots of love and mentoring. So that has been our main work in promoting young social entrepreneurs to chase their dreams, and the dreams are of course around social justice and youth leadership. Where we are now, and I'll just now quickly, so I talked about love, learning and freedom, and now I want to talk about ownership. Hundreds and hundreds of young people going through these different journeys, the school journey, the adolescent journey, the social entrepreneurship journey. Suddenly we find, okay, what are we going to do next? And our idea as Pravah was never, if I might say, not to have a corporate sort of model, quote unquote, which was, we said, we will not, this work cannot happen if you're one central agency with branches. This work can only happen if there are hundreds and hundreds of points of light everywhere and new organizations working with young people. So in 2008, we formed ComMutiny. ComMutiny, the youth collective, is now a collective of about 100 organizations who do similar work. They work across different issues. They are all youth engaging. And by similar work, they all are building youth leadership in different parts of the country. This is our next avatar. And this is what I call ownership. I want to say ownership. This is the time when we saw that the organizations that were emerged from our ecosystem were now taking ownership to build a collective voice. So they began to believe that, yes, what we are doing is important, that young people need a space to flourish and lead, and we need to build this field, this sector called the youth work field. So this community of practice has now come together. Last point, we are now in the process of building a coalition. We said that beyond the community of practice, now we want to expand and build the mission, every youth a Jagrik, every space nurturing Jagriks. A Jagrik is a self-awakened active citizen, which means not just an active citizen, but a self-awakened one, which means somebody who's constantly working on themselves like you do in the self-leadership program. So it's an evolving young person who works on social issues. And this is the Jagrik that we want to, idea and the field that we want to build. And in this cross-sectorial coalition, it's called the Vartali Coalition. We are basically working to bring together organizations that do similar work and want to invest in this field. Is my connection gone?
No, ma'am, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, it's frozen. So that's where I am. And this is what I will end with: social hope. To me, social hope is collectives, collaborations, and coalitions coming together and work.
Yeah. Ashraf, your video has gone. So maybe she'll come back in a minute. And I think what is the impact it's having on you, my fellow panelists? And I'm sure Ashraf will be back. And I meanwhile also request the audience to think about questions you would like to ask Ashraf. You can start typing the questions. But what's your response, my fellow panelists, to what you've just experienced through Ashraf's presence?
Yeah, so I would like to go first. So the way she has transformed herself from a corporate leader then to a social activist, the initial days of her when she was young and passed out from a premium B school and started her career, and then one incident has made her to transform that thought process, right? To do for the society, to enlighten the young students all across India. So that was very fascinating, and because very few of us can had that courage of leaving a full-time corporate job after passing out from a premium B school with having a very decent pay package. So that is very astonishing, and that kind of really impacted me.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
That's
so
okay.
sorry. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
No problem. You've joined through your phone, I think, so that's fine.
Yes.
We'll continue with your phone. So
Ashraf,
you were about to round up your comments. So
Yes.
Meanwhile, Samrat was saying how much inspired he felt by listening to your story. But please go ahead, share.
And I'm so sorry. Yeah, but I'll just end. I don't know exactly where I went off, but I just wanted to share that this is what I consider social hope for me. If we all, and people can get together as collectives, coalitions, communities, if we can really come together to build the space for a young person to thrive and youth communities to take leadership for the values of equality, justice, freedom, and fraternity. I just want to end.
Wonderful. So meanwhile, maybe source questions from the audience. If any of the audience wants to offer a comment or question, that would be nice. And let me, and my fellow panelists, you may want to ask questions. Any question from my fellow panelists?
Yes, sir. I would like to go first.
Yes, Amba.
First, ma'am, I would like to congratulate you on your accomplishment thus far. So, ma'am, after listening to your story and your experience, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like the 1984 event was a trigger point, and again during this time you married and you encountered another incident which you may have realized that there is a social obligation to cater to those outside of a corporate sector. So, ma'am, even if I was started working with an NGO, and I feel it is very important for a young profession to do so. So, I would like to know your views or message to the young profession on this social impact which a young profession should have.
My message is actually, thanks so much, Sambhav, right? Yeah. Sorry, on the phone I can't get everything, but yeah, thanks so much, Sambhav. I think my message to you all, actually the message you yourself had, and it was in the first 5 minutes of this whole session when I heard you speak, all of you. My message to you, to all the young people, is actually that it is about finding yourself. I mean, the journey of life is about finding yourself by working in communities that may be quite different from ourselves, and to make that connect. I think, to my mind, the biggest learning comes from there. And everyone can do that, whether we are in the corporate sector or the NGO sector or any sector, at any moment of time. Learning about life in terms of learning from others and taking action when we see an act of discrimination or an act of injustice in every sphere that we are. It can be in the smallest way, whether in our home, in our school, in our college, in our community. So taking action happens in every sphere, and we must, where we can, step up and take it and make communities that take action together. Thanks.
Very nice. There's a question from Sanjeev Tripathi in the audience. He works with Osram Industries. He's saying that you were born to parents of two different, sort of faiths, and yet you found some integration between what you learned. You had this balance in your heart and harmony. But he says that currently in this country, there are forces which are trying to accentuate differences. Given this, how do you see the future of our country?
I think Anil sort of hinted at that. What are the things happening in the world, across the world as well? I mean, this hate and violence is something that's not unique here, but it's in a way being accentuated. And I think my hope, one has to remain an optimist in this work. I think one has to remain an optimist. So I am in that way an optimist. Things are quite depressing, but the optimism comes from working with young people. And I know that when young people sit across in a room, no matter what differences they come with, they may be ideological even, and they may be identity-based differences, there may be differences of ideas, but we have seen in our interventions that if we make the effort to bring young people across these differences to sit in a process where they're really talking about self, their experiences, they really come to the learning of what's common, what's shared, rather than focus on the differences. So to my mind, the hope is, I mean, maybe it's my work and I'm biased, but really that's the only thing that keeps me awake and alive and going after this work every day. To my mind, that is the hope. We have to keep at it. Yeah.
So Rakesh Jinsi, who's the head of SOS Children's Village in India, and earlier a colleague in Aisha for many years, he was also president of SOIL. he's asking a question. It would be very helpful to understand your revenue model. So how are you ensuring sustainability of your own organization? Where are you getting your revenues and funds from?
Okay. So we are in the not-for-profit space. We are not. Many of our basically, let's put it this way: 80% of our funds are through grants and through leadership programs that we design. So they are essentially grant-based. What we like to share. So there are 20% of our programs where we also offer, where we raise revenue from in terms of doing trainings, consulting, so we do that. But I'll be really honest that for me I feel this, when we say sustainability, I do believe that some processes and programs will need investment from grant making institutions. They cannot generate their own revenue because many of the young people are not going to be able to afford this program. So just the way the government invests in education, we are investing in this kind of leadership. Sustainability will come from, yes, if we are able to, and which we are doing now, able to embed some of these leadership initiatives with government programs. So our partnership with UN agencies now means that in NSS, National Service Scheme, and in the NYKS programs, if these kind of youth leadership programs are built, then in a way it's carried. It becomes the agenda, not just our agenda, it becomes the agenda of the youth ministry and the state governments. That is where we are headed, but it is not going to be the answer. We will continue to be working on grants because number of young people are just too many so, to reach everyone.
A question from Nagendra Prasad. He's saying, in the times of choosing business management as a field of study and a career, what do you think motivates young people to choose working for less privileged, even though some of them, like you, had done an MBA and they have chosen that as a career, but then they are attracted to serving the underprivileged? So where does that come from?
In our experience with young people, it can come from anywhere. So many different sources of inspiration can come. One big source of inspiration is the exposure they've had as children, as young people, to social issues. We have found in our work with young people, typically young people have either had school programs where they have been engaged with different communities, college programs like Soil and all have, where they have been engaged in immersion opportunities. So you really get to see what's the reality in that sense, what we call, and the reality is everything. Urban is also reality, rural is also reality, but many times we only have part of the picture. So when young people are exposed more and more, that's where I think the real inspiration. The other inspiration actually comes from a lived experience also. Many young people themselves are at the receiving end of marginalization and discrimination for whatever reason. It could be the patriarchal society, it could be the hierarchy we have. And then there is a real need for young people to find their own voice and their own agency. And so some of them are just self-driven because their own personal lived experience has been difficult. And then this work gives them a space to find that purpose and meaning, to again find their voice. Yeah.
Anil Sagarji, who is working in he's the secretary of our school, Chinmaya Vidyalaya school in Unchahar. He says he's very fortunate to listen to your story and how it started with love, empathy, and compassion, which is very rare. How would you inspire more to take this route that leads, therefore, to peace, peace, and peace?
So beautifully put, Anitji. I think so maybe I'll talk about how we frame it, but there are so many people and so many of you. So I feel everyone does it in their own way wherever they are. And everyone can be a point of light. It is not that an NGO has to do it or a school has to do it and that's why our mission, every youth a Jagrik, every space nurturing Jagrik. And the whole idea is give that extra time to a young person. Everyone, make that space to listen to the young person. Make that time to
not give direct, it's not that we, and just because we are older people we know better, but make that time to create the exposure opportunity for the young person. So to my mind, our actions as adults in nurturing, creating that nurturing space, and I want to bring back, we believe that anyone, if they create a space where they can create an opportunity for a young person to experience love, learning, freedom, ओनरशिप एंड सोशल होप, अब वो किसी भी तरह से हो सकता है, और मैं और ये यंग पर्सन अगर एक्सपीरियंस कर ले, तो then they understand how to create that space. So we know many people who do this in their own special way. So I feel if we say it's a mission of everyone, if all of us believe we can do it, we will make happen this conversation. And one more, I think the meeting of minds and getting young people to engage across diversities is at the core. Most of us have never met or been friends with the so-called somebody from another community, other religion, other caste. We've never, there's no space to do that. So if we can make sure that young people are in those spaces, making friends across these boundaries, it would be really, really as simple as that.
And you said meeting of minds, Ashraf, and that's the acronym of MOM, M-O-M, meeting of minds. And moms do this so well. They bring everybody together, and that motherly energy, which is of really bringing people together, and also honoring the larger mother, which is the Mother Earth.
Yes.
So Mother Earth is also everybody's mom, and then meeting of minds. So that's a very nice thing to see.
So Anil, can I come in for a minute?
Yes.
On these moms, I do want to say that there are many dads also who do that. So we'll cut across the gender divide.
Yes.
But
in fact, I was about to build upon that. We call it mom and pop in soil because pop is practice of peace.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
The mom and pop, the meeting of minds and practice of peace. So the two come together into building a world which is better. So.
And I want to also share in very like this mom dad thing and plus practice of peace. This intergenerational conversation. We sometimes don't even talk to our kids because we feel like anyway they don't want to talk to us many times because we are old. But just making that conversation happen, trying to create an equal space. And I want to take this example. It's slightly off in the sense, not exactly in this conversation, but it fits beautifully. I want to mention Anil taking the liberty. I met Anil Sachdevji in 1989 or something. I was a summer trainee at SRF. I was going to do a performance appraisal study or something. And I was asked to, I was interviewing him to find out what is the Aisha performance appraisal. At that time, it was one hotshot appraisal system. And he was really famous. And I went as the summer trainee, went into his office to do some interview, etc. Was really diffident. Really like, everyone obviously was in awe of you even then. And so as I thought, okay, I'll do my interview and do sir, and then get out quietly, quickly. And it was transformational for me. It's very small. He got up, welcomed me to the office, got up and said, Ashraf, will you have tea or coffee? And I said, whatever, something. And then he got up and actually made the tea for me. Now, this was like many years ago. Huh? This was not the culture of organizations then. There was a hierarchy. There was the senior person, young people. It wasn't. And I think Aisha, even those days, was known for this. And it was thanks to you, Anil. I'm just sharing this. It was a very special gesture. It was very small. But this cutting across hierarchy, making an equal space, making an effort for the other young person to feel at home and equal, completely transformed the conversation in the room. And I think that's what makes for young people to be nourished and young people to know that they can lead. And to my mind, that makes a lot of difference. So thank you, Anil. Those were also seeds of
thank
learning.
you. Thank you very much. That came very naturally to us because we sort of are part of an organization that believe we could call our chairman, Mr. Vikram Lal, by his first name, Vikram. And even when I've entered, I've become now in my 60s, but I tell people, call me by my first name. I tell a young colleague who joined me, I said, as a student, you still want to call me sir because you find it difficult to call a professor by the first name. But if you become a colleague of mine tomorrow, then you call me by my first name. And I think that is the thing that we learned, because the idea is, it doesn't matter whether you are young or old, when we work together, we work as equals. So that's what it is. What a gift you have given us, Ashraf. One last quick question or comment from anybody before I summarize what we have been learning from Ashraf today. Yeah, there's a question from Raja Anadurai. He says, this is Raja Anudurai is the Raja Panchayat president from Arangur village in Kadalur district.
Wow.
And he says there is no way we can bring about personal change in the public domain. So what can we do to bring the endeavor of ours to an end? What do we do? He says that, his own experience tells him that it's almost impossible to bring change in the public domain. I think he may be talking about his personal experience of trying to reform from within. So what should we just put this to an end, or how should one gain the energy to continue with the process? He asked the question.
Rajaji, it's a very difficult time, and I think every generation actually has these phases of facing what we are facing as a world actually, and we also have climate change on one end, and we have inequality on another, and then we have the conflicts in the middle. So between all of this, I think I can sense what I think we all share a lot of this feeling, but I don't know what to say at this moment. And again, I'm biased. Working with young people, it's never failed to that extent. The young people that we work with, or you work with, or whoever, like even in the panchayat, I think the good questions to ask is, what are we doing with the young people in our panchayat? Are they engaged substantively, and not just ke bhai aap samaj seva kar do, not like that. Are we engaging them in can we engage them in a reflective process about themselves, what they are learning about society? I feel by just consciously investing in young people, we at least have a window for the for hope. And it's not for future. We say young people are leaders for today. So to my mind, I think it's all about re-examining the spaces, whether it's our family, whether it's our school, whether it's our college, whether it's the panchayat, whether it's a business enterprise. Many of people here are from the corporate sector, and those who will be in the corporate sector. Are we really in our own spaces? कहाँ है young people के लिए अपने decisions लेने के लिए, अपनी जिंदगी बनाने के लिए? और अभी भी मैं सॉरी टाइम ले रही हूँ 2 मिनट. अभी भी लोग कहते हैं कि अगर एक यंग पर्सन को डिसाइड करना है अपने की डिसीजंस, लाइक व्हाट करियर आई वांट, व्हाट डू आई वांट टू स्टडी, हु डू आई वांट टू मैरी, हु शुड माय फ्रेंड्स बी, even in these decisions today, they are being influenced and not being free to take their decisions on their own. If we can't do that, then how can we get a society that is better, where people can lead and lead with love?
Thank you, Ashraf. Ashraf, this has been absolutely inspiring to learn with you today and learn from you. I think there are the following things I listened to you today and gained some insights from. One, because of your keen openness to receive, you narrate the story. You were into this honeymoon in a 5-star hotel and something happened. And your heart's openness to receive, and you could feel, somebody mentioned that empathy is about stepping into somebody else's shoes. But my spiritual teacher guided us saying you cannot get into somebody else's shoes till you learn to get out of your own shoes. So how do you understand that context of the other? And you began to pay attention to that, and then something began to bubble up, and you were noticing that something is happening inside me. You were paying attention. Gandhiji always said that, it's the tyrant inside you, that voice that tells you, you better do something. Yes. And when that keeps you on that path, you listen to that inner voice. And then, the beautifully you said, I and one student from the Delhi School of Social Work, you were not overawed by the problem. You said, 2 of us, let's go with our limited resources, but with a song in our hearts and hope to say, we will do the best we can. And you started. And then, the whole, you use the word love. And, we co-created what does love means. And we said it is living our values eternally is love. When you are inspired by higher purpose, and when you are consistently uplifting yourself by the power, then as my teacher would say to us, you rise in love. You don't fall in love, but you rise in love when you are inspired by higher purpose. And so such a wonderful gift you gave to yourself. And then, you were making these experiments which were noticed. And then you became an Ashoka, fellow. And you said this is an opportunity at a young age when people are noticing this about you, that gave you more energy. And the experiments that you did. And you used the word, you feed from the energy of the young people. And I completely agree with you. It's the young people of today, they are there beyond biases. It's in the words of Rumi, between right and wrong, there is a space. Come and meet me there. So, it's the young people, and we have all these wonderful now gestures that, there is no bias, and people are putting it in social media. But I think there is no bias that happens in our heart when we can embrace and say, I am part of the whole, and I'm not trying to only think for myself. Last week we had a wonderful conversation with Muhammad Yunus ji. And Muhammad Yunus ji, in a similar webinar that we were doing as a part of one of our global initiatives, he said, I like people when they say, I want to act in my self-interest. But that is not enough. We have to see self-interest along with collective interest. And so, your journey has been to say your self-interest has been in collective interest. And so when you serve the whole, wonderful things happen. Ashraf, your life has been an amazing story. Lots of power to you, lots of love to all of you, lots of support to all of you. And I'm so glad that Soil is talking to you about partnering with your organization so that our students get a chance to also serve. And we are very privileged to have you this evening. And thank you very much for sharing this space with us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for creating the space. Thank you, Anil, for inviting me. It's a real honor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.